All right, not sure if anybody's in here yet. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I gotta turn this off real quick, and then I'm gonna play another song, and we'll be good to go after that. I'm just gonna wait for a few people to get in here if they're gonna come in. All right, so no more bleed back. That's good. Good, good. I'm hoping I'm coming through okay as far as audio is concerned. I believe I am. Yeah, it looks like we're good to go. All right, we'll just give it another couple minutes and we'll get rolling. Can you hear me? Check, check. Hello, hello. Looks like I may be coming through now. Supposed to be the audio wizard here, and I can't figure out the audio, so take what I say with a grain of salt, I guess. All right, I think that should be better. Haley, I guess you'll confirm whether it is or it isn't. So looks like we're coming through there. Let me just make sure that our desktop audio is coming through as well. Check, check. That should be better. All right. One thing at a time here. There we go. Is that better, Haley? Now I think both of them are coming through. Cool. All right. So as I was saying before, hopefully Haley doesn't have to cut me off again with some other like issue that's going on. But I'm basically going to be continuing a lesson that I started on YouTube a few days ago. I released a video. It was really short, actually. It was like 2 or 3 minutes long. It was about layering. And in that video, I specifically covered snares and claps and how I layer those to sort of pull, a dominant snare and then add to that snare by, finding its weak points and accentuating those weak points by adding in, snares or claps that had features that the main snare is lacking. So it's very simplistic. However, I wanted to kind of expand on that. I wanted to show you a couple of examples and sort of, in action, how I do it. So I basically released a poll on YouTube yesterday. I had released some stuff on Reddit, on Future Producers, all over the place, anywhere where people would listen. And I asked for submissions, any like sounds in particular that people wanted me to work with. And it's interesting because I'd gotten a snare sound and some kick sounds as well that I'd actually already had. I had these packs already from either Splice or however I got them initially. So I figured I would use those. I'm have a beat here that's pulled up that I'm currently working on. I've switched some things around so that we can incorporate some of these principles. But I'll sort of show you how I do it, what I'm doing, and if we want to go on to another beat, then I can do that as well. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the Twitch chat or YouTube or whatever platform you're using, and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so as you were just hearing, this is sort of the the vibe of what I'm going for. I'll go ahead and play it for you again and kind of hear what we're working with. cool. So I'm going to go ahead and isolate the snare and clap sounds for you here. You have to excuse my mixer board. It's kind of a mess. It's all over the place, right? So I'm going to go ahead and put these sounds together so you know what you're looking at. So we got a snare right there. Got one right here. Just make it a little easier for everybody here. All right, so got these isolated. I'll just change the color on them so you can see. We'll treat this like we're in first grade. Tends to usually work well for me. Yeah, so I don't even know which colors I'm making these. Okay, so if they're like pinkish, then those are the snare and clap sounds. So basically what you'll hear as I isolate these is that as I was making this beat, I started with one snare. And it was number 6 here, I believe. And I'll let you hear it like on its own. I mean, it's even got plugins on it already. And on its own, it's just kind of weak, but it has a sort of a vibe I was going for, which is a very tight, choppy, almost rim shot type snare. So let me go ahead and play that so you can hear it, and then I'll show you how I build around that. So here's the original snare. Hear how weak it is. I mean, and that's with plugins. So as you can see here, I've got an EQ, I've got a compressor, and I've got another EQ on it. So without those, see, it almost sounds hollow, right? But the reason I picked it is because it has a certain, sort of resonance or a certain vibe that I'm going for, right? I want the very tight, rim shot type snare, and it seemed like a good one. And just from experience, I know that this is something that I can build around. It may not be as obvious if you haven't done this very much before, but what I did was I added some high end to make it sound less hollow. I added some compression to make it sound a little tighter, and this is what we ended up with, right? But still, I mean, if we're listening to that, it's obvious, there's pretty much no low end. It's all high end, and there's not much to it other than the initial, contact point strike. So generally, you may want to add some like reverb or something with some low end. So the possibilities are endless in a lot of ways. So I'll go ahead and add the melodies in, and then I'll play some of the snares and claps that I added to it after, and I'll tell you why I added them, how I added them in, and how I incorporated them without them being like overpowering or distracting, right? So the main sort of driving force of the beat is this little riff here. So I'll just play it on its own. No plugins. The magic of digital, guys. But that's what I ended up with. And then as I was playing it, I added the snare in. And you can tell it has potential. But if you left it like that and you just made your beat, it's not going to work for you. So I added in, after this initial snare, I figured, I need something with some low end. I need something with some grit rather than just the high end sound. So I have 3 other snares that I've added. I'll play just this first one for you so you can kind of hear what that sounds like compared to the original. And I think as you start to do this more often on your own, you'll start to realize that sounds that don't seem like they would go together, especially snares and claps, can fit together perfectly, just because of the way that the frequencies combine, right? So this is the second snare. Okay, so a lot more quiet, obviously, and that's something that you'll have to remember as well. Is that you're gonna have to turn these down for the most part, because you don't want it to be distracting, and you don't want people to know that you're doing this or hear that there's multiple snares. But that snare, as you can hear, is similar to the original, and that's very like choppy, tight. But the difference is that one has more low end and it sounds a bit more loose. So instead of the sound, it's more of a a traditional snare. It has some traditional snare elements, I should say. So when you combine them, this is what you get. Okay, here's the original. Sorry. And then combined. And that's very subtle, right? But these are the margins that you're going to be dealing with. So I just want to kind of show you that there will be times like that where you don't hear much of a difference. But since it's not the final product, you kind of don't know what you're getting until the end. So I'll bring the loop back in. I'll play it with those two, and then I'll show you sort of the third and fourth snare and how that sort of builds out. So here's the loop with both of the snare sounds combined. And it already has more body than it did before, as you can kind of hear. So I'll just go ahead and add in that third snare. Okay. Actually, I had like the wrong plug in there. Let me go ahead and add in that third snare along with that loop, and you'll hear sort of the way this sort of builds out. This whole time I was telling you there's 4 snares. There's actually 3. So here's what they all sound like together. Right, so as you can hear, that third snare is drastically different. It's a lot more sort of epic sounding, especially if you add some reverb to it. And I'm only using it on every other snare sound. So I want to accentuate the second and fourth, beat, the 2 and the 4, right? So I've added in on the 2 and the 4, and ultimately, once I'm done mixing this, I will probably have added some, large like chamber type reverb. Or hall reverb that's very faint in the background to give it some more depth. But the fourth, or what I thought was the fourth snare here, is actually a hi-hat sound that I'm sort of using as a sort of off-beat snare to kind of drive the rhythm. So it's not an actual snare, so I was a little confused there. But that's pretty much the basis of layering the snares. It's super simple, right? Like the big thing is, you have to do this. And you got to go through all of your sounds, and you have to find stuff that works together. And the only way you're really going to do it is through experimentation. As you become better and better, you may start building lists of certain types of sounds that go well with X, Y, or Z. But until then, you just have to experiment. You got to put in the work like all the rest of us, and listen to snare sounds for 5 hours straight. It's got to be done. So, but it is worth it in the end. So I'll sort of build this beat out for you, in real time. I'll start with that loop. I'll bring in some of the snares. I'll bring in the other sounds, and then you'll kind of sort of hear the end result. And then I'll show you what it sounds like with that one snare on its own, and then with the other 2 added in. So I think you'll hear a drastic difference, and hopefully you're learning something from this as well. So if you guys have any questions, just pop them in the chat there. Let's go ahead and get it started here. start bringing those snares in. The original. Weak. Makes me want to throw up. But we'll bring those other ones in here in a minute. Okay. Let's do some percussion. That's sort of how that beat's being built out. Maybe I got a question here. I'm trying to find it actually as I'm working. I don't want to shirk you guys here. Give me just a second. I'm pulling this up. I assume it is in YouTube. Haley, if you can shoot that over. Yeah, can you like copy paste it over to me, because I don't have YouTube chat pulled up. I would appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, guys, that's basically the basis of what we're doing here. Right, like that beat in of itself is not done. I'm still working on it, but I'll play, what I'm just playing for you, and then I'll add in those snares, and then you'll hear the drastic difference, and the possibilities are endless with these methods, right? So, figuring out with your dominant sound what it's missing, and then going to find sounds that have that feature, have that missing feature, right? It's about as easy as it gets, right? It's just in practice, it takes a little bit of time and effort to get it right. So here's the beat again, then I'll bring in those snares, and you'll hear the difference. Here we go. Yeah, for sure, Haley. And I actually do have a fourth snare to bring in for you guys, because as you can tell, it still sounds a little weak, right? So I added in a fourth after the fact, and I wanted to show you just how drastic this can be. So here's that fourth snare sound. I'm gonna go ahead and bring it in and just listen to the difference, okay? Here we go. Snares only. As we build it out. You could even play with the levels here, you know? If you want it to be more epic and you want that big snare to be even louder, do it, you know, as long as it's not overwhelming. So you could turn it up, right? You want to be careful not to do it too much, but... And this is the one I'm referring to. I'll just listen to it ride with the just the percussion. And then I'll show you sort of how you find these things and, you know, specifically so you know what you're looking for. And hopefully that'll be helpful. Okay, so let's listen to the snare, the original snare first. And I'll just pull up a parametric EQ for you here, and I'll show you what it's missing. And yeah, without me even doing anything to it here, I'll just go ahead and disable this effect. Let me play it for you, and we'll see sort of where the frequency response is here. Of course, I'm boosting some high end, right? But it wouldn't even matter either way, because as you can see, like, we're barely getting anything until like 250, and that's when really it all starts there. It's almost as if they had a high pass filter on it before they uploaded it, right? So when you have a sound like that, and granted, like this here is I'll just play it stock and let you kind of hear what that sounds like. And it's even obvious there. There's no low end, right? So basically what I've done is I've said, okay, there's not any low end, right? There's nothing I can do about that other than add additional sounds, which is what we're doing here in this video. However, if I like the sound, if I like the vibe, and I know it doesn't have low end, why not accentuate some of its positive features? So what I've done, as you can see, disabled all these, but I'll go ahead and enable again. I just went ahead and cut some more low end, because if it's not going to have any low end, if it's not going to have any low end, I would much rather just cut it all together, or as much as we need to. So I went ahead and dipped it there. I've added some dynamic EQ all across the board, where I've boosted at around 2K, I've boosted around 8K dynamic EQ, and then I've taken off some of this this grading top end. So here's what it sounds like then. So now it's all high end, right? So, as you become more familiar with drums or whatever it is that you're layering, you'll start to, see certain frequency ranges and realize what they generally correspond to. So with certain, snares, certain frequency ranges will, generally be like muddy, or you'll know that, generally, frequencies boosted in this low end range are going to help build some body in the snare. But until then, all you can really do is kind of look at the parametric and see sort of where things are at and where things are missing. So when you see that it has almost nothing until 250, and you hear that it sounds a little tinny, and you want to go with that snare, just realize that if you don't add something that has some low end, you're going to run into some problems, right? So that as it may, the two sounds that have the most low end that I've added are this snare and this snare. I'll just go ahead and play them together, and you'll hear the difference between the original and these two. Okay, so I'm going to show you an EQ on this deep one, and I'll show you the difference. I'll just go ahead and pull up an F6 for us here. All right. Yeah, so as you can see on this one, you've got, frequency response as low as like 125. right? And with snares, you're not going to get it all the way down to like, to the low end, because there's no need for that, and it would, it would sound horrible. But that's a massive difference, right? So, what you could even do in this situation is, if you want to really accentuate sort of the low end of the snare, if the song calls for that and you think it's going to sound good, you could even say, all right, this is going to be a low snare. I'm going to go ahead and boost some of these low end frequencies. So let's say we boost around like 150, maybe 3-4 dB. And you could even cut some of these frequencies that the other snare is being boosted at. I don't know how good this will sound at this point, but you can try it, right? So let's go ahead and cut some of these, sort of where the other snare was being boosted, boost where the other snare is lacking, and see what the difference is. Okay. So it sounds better to me on its own, without the EQ. But keep in mind, whenever we're mixing, we got a bunch of stuff going on. So let's listen to it with the original and just see if it makes a difference, right? And this is what mixing is. This is how you learn, right? So let's go ahead and play it with the EQ engaged. Okay, I'll go ahead and disengage it. Okay, so the difference isn't drastic, but if you were in a situation where you wanted to add more snares and you were finding that adding this in with others was causing it to sound too harsh, you could always do the thing where you cut. And basically what you're trying to do when whether you're mixing an entire song or whether you're mixing vocals or whatever the case may be, you want as even a frequency response as you can possibly get. It's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to be possible. But, when you're mixing an entire song, for example, you don't want, massive spikes to be down here at, 100 or 250, and then the rest be even across the board, because it's going to sound horrible. And we all kind of know that, right? But when it comes to individual sounds, a lot of us don't think that way. But this is something that I've learned over the decade plus that I've been doing this, and it's not foolproof and it doesn't always work, but there are plenty of times where you're going to be at a distinct advantage over, a new producer or someone that doesn't know these skills, because in essence, while they're out searching splice or whatever they're doing, trying to find that perfect snare or clap or whatever, that, probably actually doesn't exist, but they're going to go look for it anyway, and go spend 2 or 3 hours doing that. You can, in essence, create that sound, right? And you don't have to know like drum synthesis to actually do it. You can do it by the combining of sounds that you already have. So it's a really powerful tool, something that I use a lot. Like, very rarely do I just use one snare or clap. I'll usually use like 2 or 3. It's kind of the sweet spot. Sometimes I'll go up to 4 or 5 if I'm feeling a little spicy that day. But that's how this works, and I'll play the final result for you with all the snares engaged, and that's pretty much it as far as the song's concerned. So let's go and let it ride. Yes, that's a good question, actually. Don't talk to cops. So when it comes down to it, as far as your sounds are concerned within your library, like, everyone has them, organized differently. Some people just have a jumble of, nonsense, and they sort through it. And some people know where stuff is at. Some people don't. Other people have sound packs organized as such. And other people will throw snares with snares, depending on the pack, and they'll throw all of their snares together. So they may have 1,000 different snares in a folder, and they may segment them, even further. That just takes time. Unfortunately, especially in the beginning when you're doing this, it is going to be trial and error. There's the meme, that I see on social media about what people think producing is. It's them jamming out in the studio, and then it says what producing actually is, and it's just him listening to snare sound after snare sound after snare sound. That's kind of what it is. But the difference would be between what we're doing and then going to Splice for 3 hours is that on Splice, sure, you'll find some sounds that you like, and you'll add them to the library, and you probably don't need them, but you're there anyway, and you're having some fun. The difference is with ours, not only can you solve an immediate problem, then you could also, when you find like that combination of snares and claps, like if I wanted to keep, for example, the totality of these snares that I put together in this beat, you can export those as a sample, and you could have those for next time as one complete sound, right? So it could be, Twitch stream snare 1, and it could basically be these. Of course, it wouldn't be the pattern, right? But you could just take the totality of the 4 of them together. It's right here. Right. So, and then you can export those samples. Now, a lot of people don't do that, right? Some people think it's a waste of time. I don't do it a whole lot, but it is one of those cool features that that you can really take advantage of. And if people aren't doing this, then they're not going to be able to take advantage of that. So that's pretty much what we're doing with layering snares and claps. Since the video was like 2 minutes long, I wanted to expand on it a bit. Now, these concepts apply to pretty much anything. So, for example, let's just say we have a string sound of some sort, right? Let's just go with strings. Bear with me here as I get this pulled up. Yeah, so we're gonna go with strings. Hopefully you can hear that. So this plugin and these string sounds are really good, right? Because they sound rich and they sound great. But if you're just starting producing, you may not have good string sounds. I don't think I had good string sounds for like the first 5 years that I was producing. Granted, this was back in the Stone Age, but you know what I mean. There are times where if you have cheap string sounds, for example, or cheap brass sounds, or whatever the case may be, that you may have a great melody and you like the way it sounds, but when you're putting it all together in the mix, it doesn't sound pro. It sounds like a bedroom producer made it. And that could be because of the mix as a whole, or it could be because of one errant sound. So let's just say you have a crappy set of strings. You can use these same principles to then supplement those string sounds with something else, whether that be other string sounds or a lead or some sort of synth. And you could basically play that same melody, or you could play harmonies or whatever you wanted to do. But instead of just hearing the crappy string sound, now I'm hearing a rich sort of tapestry of sounds that on their own may not sound great and may not be, top tier, Roland Phantom level sounds. But if you learn how to put them together, you're going to have a distinct advantage. I, like years and years and years ago, I produced and made loops for, some larger name producers at the time. And like all I had was Fruity Loops and stock sounds. That's it. I just had to like make it work. I was in high school. I didn't have any money, so couldn't really do anything about that. But the same concept applies whether you're talking about drums, whether you're talking about strings, synths, leads, kicks, whatever. And hopefully you guys are able to take something from this. If you have any other questions, feel free to shoot them in chat. I'm going to go ahead and let some music play out, so that way if you have any questions, I can answer them before we go. If you're not able to get questions in, or if you're watching the VOD,
feel free to drop some questions in the comment section. And again, I'm new to Twitch. If you want to see more stuff like this, or if you want to see some like beat making sessions or anything that you think would be of value to you, this is kind of what I do pretty consistently. And I drop videos on YouTube. Feel free to subscribe, like, whatever platform you're on, do whatever is good for me on there. So I would appreciate it. But no, it was good to at least have you drop in and learn a little something. I appreciate you coming by. I appreciate you watching, and I'll let some music ride out, and then we'll be done here. So yeah, I appreciate it. Hey, don't talk to cops. Yeah, go ahead and sub. I didn't want to keep people on for too long today. I'm one that I'll ramble all day long. So go ahead and sub, man. I'll be on here in the next few days. We'll run over another one. We'll do some beat making sessions, whatever you want to do. If you have any questions or if you want me to answer anything between then and now, or between now and then, feel free to shoot me an email as well. So, my email is Christian, CHRISTIAN, at producedbyvargo.com. Okay, so my first name, Christian, at producedbyvargo.com. Feel free to shoot me an email if you have any questions. Drop it in the comment section, whatever you want to do. And then we'll do that at that point. So, I wanted to keep this short and sweet today, but I appreciate you, being engaged and stopping by. Thanks. All right, awesome. Thanks, folks.